I'm Karen from theneedlefelter.com. Welcome to Not a Needle Felting video. Today I'm going to try to figure out how to make the woolly pine tree from Sarafina Fiber Arts YouTube channel without a kit. This is a tutorial from 2015, and I feel like it's sort of gotten lost over time, and I think it deserves a resurrection. Sarafina Fiber Arts sold kits, but the tutorial itself was designed by Mary and Jackie. I'm not sure of their last names, they're not listed with the video or the kit, but apparently they taught courses on how to make this tree at Sarafina's store. It's an inspiring and easy to follow video, but it doesn't give you all the information you need to make the tree. That missing info would apparently be in the kit. That's fine, except every time I look for the kit, it is out of stock. I don't fault anyone for this. It's a video tutorial from 2015 after all. I really can't expect there to be kits available. I searched for a kit at other suppliers and on eBay and just couldn't find one. I found a printed pattern and ordered it. While I was waiting for that to arrive, I tried to figure out what I'd need to make the tree. I basically compared the video content with the sold out kit page. The links for both of those are in the video description below. I made a list of the supplies and tools. I had some, but not all of them, so I started shopping. In the video, the wool is clearly a woven fabric. Mary said it was 7.5 inches long, and I estimated it was probably 60 inches wide based on looking at the width of woven wool online. I didn't want to buy a lot, just enough to make maybe 2 trees, and I had trouble finding fabric I liked from a store that would allow me to order a small quantity. One person in the video comments said they used fleece, which seems like a great option, but I really wanted to use wool. Luckily, I found an Etsy shop called Designs in Wool that sells fat quarters. They are about 16 by 28 inches, which I think should be enough to make 1 tree, and they have some beautiful earthy green plaids. I ordered evergreen. The tree uses green cloth-covered wire. My local Hobby Lobby only had 2 sizes, 18 gauge and 22 gauge. The Mum's Makery Douglas fern tree I made a while back sort of popped into my head, and I remembered that the branch wire for that was definitely larger than 22 gauge, so I chose the 18 gauge wire thinking that it would be sturdier. Now we get to the challenging part. In the video tree, I counted 10 rows of branches plus 1 branch for the tree top. That's a total of 34 branches. The kit page states there is a new and improved kit with 44 branches. Okay, new or old, still out of stock. Not going to worry about that one. In the video comments, someone shared that they had made a tree with 8 rows and a total of 33 branches. Then I received the printed pattern. It is for a tree with 8 rows, but 47 branches. So every version of this tree I found was different. I decided to use 10 rows, following the video, and add a couple extra branches to the bottom rows just to fill out the bottom of the tree a bit. Next, I had to decide how long to cut the wires for each row. In the video, Mary places the wires on top of the wool fabric at one point, and since she had said the fabric was 7.5 inches tall, the longest wire appeared to be a little shorter than the fabric. I guessed that was 7 inches long. The shortest looked like it was at least half the width of the fabric, maybe a little bit more. I decided that was 4 inches. I estimated the lengths of the other wires using these 2 numbers. Then I got practical and decided I wanted a slightly smaller tree. So I downsized the wire lengths just a little, and here's what I ended up cutting. And then I taped them into bunches just like in the video. I really love that sort of tape trick because it kept the rows organized and very easy to work with. In the video, Mary says the dowel for the tree trunk is 18 inches long, and at one point she opens the instructions from the kit, and in the list of supplies, this is like real detective work here, in the list of supplies you can see the dowel is 3/8 inch wide. It's also sharpened at one end, so I bought a 3/8 inch dowel from my local Hobby Lobby, And since I'm making a smaller tree, I cut my dowel down to 15.5 inches. Later on, I thought it made the base too long, so I cut another inch off the bottom. So my final dowel ended up being about 14.5 inches. To sharpen the end of the dowel, I used one of those box cutter style knives and just carved a point, and then I sanded it smooth. Mary said the dowel was marked every 1.5 inches for each row of branches, but since I cut a shorter dowel, I made it 1.25 inches. Next, the wool needed to be cut into strips to make the pine needles or the fringe. Since it was mentioned in the video that the wool was 7.5 inches wide, and you can see it is cut into 6 strips, that means each strip must be about 1.25 inches wide. I cut the salvage edges off the wool and made small snips every 1.25 inches. Then comes the fun part. You don't have to actually cut the strips. You can tear woven wool once you have that snip in place. So easy. Since my strips were shorter than in the video because I was working with the fat quarter instead of a full width piece of fabric, I went ahead and made strips with my entire piece of wool. And then I folded each strip in half and started cutting the fringe. I just eyeballed the width of the fringe so it looked similar to the video. But follow the video though, because it does show you how to handle cutting the fringe at the fold. Making the branches was surprisingly relaxing. It took me a couple branches to get a rhythm down and not make them too thin. And again, watch the video tutorial as Mary demonstrates how to keep the wool perpendicular to the wire. It felt a little weird to me since I'm used to wrapping wool on a wire at an angle to keep it thin. But once I got the hang of it, I wrapped all the branches in about 2 hours while listening to old episodes of Project Runway. When it came to attaching the branches to the tree trunk, I seemed to make working with the brown floral tape as difficult as I possibly could. I think I was just stretching it too tight so it kept breaking, but it wasn't a problem. I mean, you just add a little more and keep going. I did try to consider the placement of the branches as I attached them. For instance, if there were 4 branches, I tried to make sure that the first and third were directly across from each other. And then I also tried to place the next row of branches in between the branches of the row above it. So I'd put branch number 1 on the second row between branch 1 and 2 of the row above. Hopefully that makes sense. To wrap the tree trunk, you're supposed to use brown cotton fabric. I didn't have any, but I had a little brown stretch satin. I cut a strip of that and I wrapped it with the shiny side facing the trunk so the trunk didn't look wrapped in satin. It worked pretty well. I initially left about an inch unwrapped at the bottom, but I ended up realizing that my dowel was too long, as I mentioned earlier. So I just cut that inch off the bottom. I drilled a hole into my birch base and popped the tree into the base. Here's the finished tree. I'm so happy that I decided to make this. I love it so much I already have a second one started. The original video is such a good tutorial, and I really believe it's a project that deserves to be revived. If you have questions or comments, leave them below, and thanks for watching.